Well, now that I have the movement of the pickup just the way that I want it and just the speed that I want it, I want to make a bunch of these and, in essence, copy and paste them around the game area so that the UFO can capture them. Well, in order to do that, instead of making a bunch of copy and paste, what I'll do is I'll use Unity's prefab approach. In a prefab, you can think of that as kind of like a class object relationship where I make this would be like my cookie cutter. And I'm saying, okay, I'm going to push the cookie cutter down on the dough right here and right here and right here. And I'm making a bunch of copies of this thing, or I'm basically using this as a template to make a bunch of cookies, so to speak, like the way that a cookie cutter would. You put the dough flat on the table and then you just punch the cookie cutter down on different parts of the dough to make a bunch of cookies. Well, in Unity, we call that prefabs. So what I want you to do is to select the Assets folder, and I'm going to create a new folder inside of Assets. And it has to be called this specific name. We're going to call it Prefabs, just like that. Press Enter. It is within the Prefabs folder that we are going to place the original pickup, and then from there we can make a bunch of prefabrications, or in other words, we can make a bunch of objects of this type of class. In C++ programming, or actually in object-oriented programming, we call this instantiation. So instantiation means you're basically creating a bunch of objects of a particular class. Well, in here, we're going to create a bunch of pickups based on this one individual pickup. All right, well, now that I've created my prefabs folder, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the pickup and I'm going to drag and drop that into the prefabs folder. So you see over here where it says prefabs, it actually contains our pickup. And remember, what is this thing? It is a sprite that we've established code for. Here it is, that will rotate it at the described amount. Okay, so the next thing to consider is how do I create a bunch of these and kind of collect them? Well, the way that we're going to do that is as follows. Over here in the hierarchy panel, right where it says create, click that, and you'll see that there is actually it's over here, create empty, at the very top. I click on create empty and it says game object. By the way, I could have also clicked on game object and create empty. So you can think of this as a collection. In this case, it is an object, and we're going to treat this as if it were a folder. Okay, instead of having it with the name game object, I can either click over here and type over this, or I can click, wait for a second, click again, and then I can type over this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say pickups with a capital, or with an S at the very end, make this plural, because this is going to be the collection of all of my pickups. Well, let me move my individual pickup, which is this guy over here. Let me move my individual pickup into that folder. So I'm going to drag and drop it, place it right there. Okay, there's one of my pickups right there. And in fact, I can take this guy and I can move it around wherever I want. Now, before I do that, I created a no-no over here. Over here, when I created my pickups, which is basically just this, create empty, I had to do that, but I forgot to reset that. So do you see where the origin is? And I don't want to do that. So make sure that that pickups is selected. Then we're going to click on that gear. We're going to click on reset. All right, so now with that gear on reset, now I can click this guy over here, and I can go ahead and now click on reset. And now we've restored order to the universe. This, right in the middle here, X, Y, Z axis, that's where the 000 location is. Now I select that pickup and I also reset that so it's at the 000 location. Now that I have this, I can move it to a different location because I'm going to copy and paste a bunch of these. So I'm going to select this tool over here. It's called the Move tool. This pickup is selected. And so with the Move tool, I can just simply do this. I like to hover on top of that little square right there, and then as you can see, I can move this thing around. Now, if I wanted to, I could just simply move it amongst the y-axis or move it amongst the z-axis, but I like this guy over here. I'm going to place a pickup over here. And let's see here. If I select that pickup, edit, and duplicate, or Command D. So I think I'm going to be doing Command D from now on. Well, I'll take this guy and I'll move that down here, and then Command D on my keyboard. Now, of course, if you're on a PC, it's probably going to be Control D, and I'll move that over here, because remember the spaceship is going to be over here, and then Command D over here, Command D. Let's move that to somewhere in between here. I'm going to try to make a circle shape. Command D, somewhere over here, Command D, and then finally Command D, something like that. By the way, let me go back to my player, and I'm going to put a checkbox right over here to make it so that it's visible and active. And so now you can see the idea is when we run this game, which I'll do it right now, when we run this game, I want to be able to have all these spin. Look at that. Isn't that nice? We did the work for one of these pickups, and so now I've made a bunch of them by creating a prefab. And so now what's going to happen is by creating this empty game object, which is based on that prefab, every single one of these that I've copied and pasted or duplicated has that same behavior. Now, when I use the arrow key, I want to be able to actually capture them. So right now you see they just bump into them, right? Because each of these has a collider, but I don't want that. I want to be able to actually consume them when I bump into them. So that's the next thing we got to work out. But first, let me stop the gameplay, and I'm going to click on File, and let me go ahead and save the project so that in case anything bad happens, at least I would have saved this. Okay, so what I'm going to do at this point is to generate the code such that if the UFO collides with any of these pickups, I want them to disappear. So let's do this. It looks like I've got the player selected, and I've got the player controller script right here. Let me click on this drop down, the gear drop down, and go to edit script. And of course that's going to take me into Visual Studio, or I could just select it, player controller, and then continue to type in from here whatever I want to work on. All right, well, what I want you to do is over here, let's press enter a couple of times. Let me hit tab, and I'm going to have you type in private void, and let's see here, on trigger, the wording is not coming up here. Why is that? So let me get rid of this. Oh, look at that. I have player controller and I have player controller over here. I see. So I think what I need to do is I need to close this one. This was the updated one. So save changes, that's fine. And I think what I did was I double clicked on Visual Studio back over here. Let me show you what I did. I went to scripts, and I think I double clicked on, let's say over here, like camera controller and or player controller, I should say. I double clicked on player controller, and it was already open, and so it basically just duplicated itself. So I closed one of the player controllers. In fact, if I close all these, right, and if I went back over here, and if I double clicked on player controller, that's okay. Or if I go back over here and I select the player, and then I go to the player controller script area, click the drop down over here for the gear, and then edit script, and then that takes me back over here as well. All right, so I just had one too many of these guys open. So now let me press enter a couple of times after this fixed update function, and I'm going to type in private void. Let me type in on trigger. So now I have a listing of all these different items, all these different functions that I have available to me, and I want this one, on trigger, enter 2D. All right, I have to sneeze, so I'm going to stop the video. I'll be right back.